Flight to Athens, Greece, departing in 10 minutes from gate 10.
In the summer of 2014, David traveled to Athens with a plan. He had talked to his Aunt Catherine about her reunion with Effie, and he wanted to continue from where she had left things off.
I was on a mission to try to connect my mom and Effie with very low expectations. Going there was no guarantee that they would even talk.
His father, David Sr., was still very much opposed to Joan reconnecting with Effie. So David's strategy was to meet up with her first and sort of vet her out.
And then I can say to my dad, okay, things are good here. Let's go to stage 2. At that point, I was like, okay, I've read all the history and I need to feel it. I need to see the place. I need to smell it and taste it. But then more importantly, I need to meet my family.
So the stakes were high, and he was feeling the pressure. Yes, he had read the history, but he knew almost nothing about modern Greece and what to expect. To me, it's like David arrived in Athens in a time capsule. He was all caught up on the 1950s and the Greek Civil War, but had little awareness of how matters had progressed since then. He did not know a single neighborhood in Athens by name. So he decided to stay somewhere famous.
I booked a little hotel one night right next to the Acropolis, really predictable.
The arrangement was that he would stay in the hotel for just one night, and then Nikos, Effie's husband, would come and pick him up and take him to meet Effie. He was to live with his Greek family, complete strangers, for a week. When the time came, he was extremely excited and nervous and sweating.
It was a sunny, very hot, very sunny, classic day in Athens. I had some kind of suit on. I wanted to look nice. I guess since I'm the son of Joan, my mother, that I was a kind of representative of her. So I felt that very powerfully, like I wanted to represent her well.
Nikos' car stopped at the entrance of his hotel. Inside were also Iliana, Effie's daughter, and Konstantinos, her grandson.
You're off to the races when the door opens and there's just these Greek people there and they're all smiles and it's hugs. I think everyone had sandals on except me. I had these crazy boots and wool socks on as I do now.
I met David in New York in January, and he was wearing a pair of worn-down brown leather boots. Now imagine the same boots in 100 degrees weather.
We got in the car and we were just off to Glyfada.
Glyfada, the suburb by the sea where Effie lives, is a long way from the Acropolis. So 4 people, connected by thinly stretched ties, were trapped in a small space for quite a while. What did they talk about?
What the heck did we talk about? I don't remember, but it was a little bit of a tour, We passed the American Army base in Glyfada, and we intentionally drove by that. They pointed it out. It was very much like, see this place? We'll talk about that,
I suspect that they wanted to give David some sort of history lesson. They were coaching him for what was to come. David was their relative. He was Joan's beloved son. But he was also an American who did not and could not understand the critical nuances of Greek history. And he was about to meet Effie, who embodied this history. To some extent, I think Effie's husband and daughter were at that moment eager to protect Effie in a similar way that David and his dad, David Sr., were trying to protect Joan all those years. Because as much as Effie embodied Greek history, David represented the other side. He was a citizen of a country that to many Greeks symbolized oppression. The nation that supported a military junta. The people who stole Effie's sisters. You're listening to Born Greek, Made American, a podcast series about adoption, trauma, and politics. Episode 5. Saying a Name Out Loud. I'm Katerina Bakoyani. hundreds of people are demonstrating outside the United States Embassy in the center of Athens. The year is 2014, the year that David came to Athens to meet his family. But this demonstration takes place every year on the 17th of November in commemoration of the massive student uprising against the Greek military junta from 1967 to 1974. And every year, there will be riots. That is what you're listening to in the background. Athenians know not to drive into the center of Athens on that date, or they will be caught between petrol bombs thrown by protesters and tear gas used by the police. You would think that Greece's fight against American imperialism would be a remnant of the past, but that anger is alive and well. The fact that we're the only European country still protesting against American foreign policy is worth explaining. So I asked historian Alexander Kittreff, emeritus professor at Haverford College in Philadelphia, you may remember him from episode 2, to shed some light on this complex relationship between Greece and the US.
I think it's very difficult if you are protesting against the establishment to change the way you are protesting. I think this is a time-honored vocabulary, anti-Americanism, and I think the left and the protesters haven't been inventive enough to find a new way of expressing their protests and their opposition to the establishment.
Is there another European country that the US has had such an involvement in?
I don't think so. I think this was a unique situation. I mean, if we think of the way Europe was divided after World War II, the West was under a benign influence of the United States. The East was under a repressive influence on the part of the Soviet Union. Greece was somewhere in the middle. It didn't quite make it to becoming a normal Western democracy because of the strength of the left-wing movement and the repression of the left-wing movement on the part of the right. If they had been a different scenario, if they'd been a more liberal center which prevailed in Greece, then I don't think the United States would have come down so heavily. But unfortunately, the right-wing polarization meant that the US came in very powerfully, and yes, I think uniquely in terms of post-World War II Europe.
Hence the anti-Americanism still today.
The left uses it. A lot of other people are kind of indifferent. The younger generation are not very clear why it exists, and it's on its way out, I think.
The truth is, things have changed dramatically in terms of the way US-Greek relations have unfolded.
They've been superseded by much more positive aspects of the relationship. For example, President Clinton's visit to Athens, where he issued an apology for the way the United States had supported the junta.
When the junta took over in 1967 here, the United States allowed its interest in prosecuting the Cold War to prevail over its interests, I should say its obligation to support democracy, which was, after all, the cause for which we fought the Cold War. It is important that we acknowledge that.
President Clinton's apology came in the course of an official visit to Athens in 1999. And by the time he visited, a lot had changed since the 60s or 50s. Today, Greece is an independent country, a member of the European Union. The US doesn't have as much political or financial influence as it once did. But it's also a country recovering from a huge economic crisis. The bad state of the economy brought more people on the street protesting against the strict austerity measures, which left most of the population impoverished. And even though the Obama administration was actually very supportive of Greece during those hard times, the same anti-American, anti-capitalist sentiments resurface from time to time. There is another reason I wanted to get a historian's view. Kittreff knows the history of Americans adopting Greek children during the Cold War. He explained why Effie wasn't able to claim her sisters from the Greek state.
She was tainted by the fact of family ties. Family members were automatically considered suspect. No proof, no logic, nothing. It was just a vindictive reaction against the left on the part of those right-wing regimes.
So, could Effie or any other family member have done anything to keep Joan from being sent to the US without their will?
No way. They would not have been let in the door. They were like as if they had a stamp on their foreheads that they were leftists, they were subversives, they were suspicious. They wouldn't be allowed any access and denied any of their rights and claims that they could have made.
Now back to our story. We left off at the point where David was in the car with Effie's family, driving toward her house in Glyfada. They had taken a sightseeing detour to get to know each other, but now they have arrived. Effie lives in a modernist building on the 5th floor. Nikos, Effie and Iliana all rode up with David in the elevator.
It's like I'm being ushered to see the Queen almost. You could feel everyone just kind of move out of the way. It's like the seas parting and just Effie and I. It was just wow, wow, look at this person. Look at this beautiful person in front of me. And you don't even know what to say. What do you say? I don't think we said anything. I was just hugging her and holding her, and she's a nice hug, a nice firm hug. And she just welcomed me in.
David moved his things to the guest room like he knew these people all his life. He told me it all felt very normal. He fit into their life without any effort, smoothly, amazingly. Both sides had been afraid, and it was better than expected. They were becoming family.
I want to express how easy it was to be with them. They were so nice to me, and I was kind of shocked by that. The one thing that really sticks out to me is that they would do my laundry, and I remember Effie would fold my laundry, but she folded my socks in this way that I'd never seen before. She would take the two socks, hold them together, and in one sock you put your 4 fingers, and then in the second sock you put your thumb, and then you roll it inside out. It still really moves me because it was like such a metaphor. I mean, we all lose our socks, right, in the dryer. It was a little gesture of don't lose the connection.
David and Effie were connecting, but it was also a sort of proxy connection. David was representing Joan, and Effie, being herself, was trying to catch up for the lost time.
So we spent a day or two in the living room, the whole family, translating, where they were giving me the history. And also they wanted to hear about my mom. Tell me about what happened here in Greece. And then now my turn, tell me about your mother. Just how is she? What is she like? What's going on? What was your life like?
But while they talked, a question loomed over them. Would they try to call Joan? David felt protective of his mother, but the more he got to know her estranged family, the more he felt he should connect them.
So at some point, I was texting with my father, letting him know how things are going. And I said to my dad, Dad, everything is wonderful here. And these people, again, surprise, surprise, but these people love Mom, just like we do. And there's nothing to be afraid of. My dad trusted me.
So, to everyone's astonishment, David Sr. was finally on board. David told me he was surprised at how excited his father was once he made the decision. I find it surprising too, given all the years that he had stood in the way. Now, all they had to do was make the call.
My dad put my mom on the phone, and I was trying to be very sweet because my mom didn't know where I was. She knew that I was in Greece, but I never told her I was going to see her sister.
I'm going to play some of this phone call. Only David's side of the call was recorded, so you won't hear Joan's voice.
Amazing time with your sister and her family. And I'm wondering, if you'd like to say hello. Yeah? Well, that's okay. But I wanted to tell you that I've been here for almost a week now, and everyone here is amazing and really great, and I'm having a really good time. And I thought it'd be a nice to just put you guys in touch just to say hello. No, she speaks Greek. I don't. It's been difficult. We have translators. Here, yeah, I'll put her on the line, okay? Okay, hold on 1 second.
We can't know what Joan is saying, but it seems clear that she knows which sister David is with. She wouldn't ask what language Catherine spoke. And next, she asks about a house, because we hear David saying,
No, I'm here in a new house in Glyfada. Yeah, it's really nice. It's very beautiful. Yeah, I'll talk to you afterwards. Okay, so hold on the line 1 second, okay?
all this time, Effie is in the other side of the room, listening, waiting.
I was sitting on the bed in the guest room, on the phone, on the landline, and after speaking to my mom, I handed the phone over to Effie. She came closer and she sat down on the bed.
Ιωάννα μου. Αλλό. Τι κάνεις μωρό μου?
How are you, my darling?
Καλά είσαι?
Are you well?
Εδώ με τον David.
I'm here with
Τι
David.
παιδί είναι αυτό?
He's a great
Τι
kid.
καλό παιδί, τι καλό
What a
παιδί.
good kid.
Τι χαρά έχω
How
Ιωάννα.
happy I am, Ioanna.
Είναι σαν να είσαι κι εσύ εδώ μαζί
It is
μας.
like you are here with us.
Μιλάμε όλο για σένα.
We keep talking about
Σ'
you.
αγαπάμε πολύ και εγώ και ο David.
We
Σ'
love you,
αγαπάμε πάρα
David
πολύ.
and I. We love you very
Η
much.
γλυκιά μου αδελφή.
My sweet sister,
Αγάπη μου.
my darling,
Αδελφούλα μου.
my little sister.
Δεν πειράζει.
It's all right. It's all right.
Εμένα μου φτάνει μόνο που σ' ακούω.
I'm okay just listening to you.
Ναι. Σ' ακούω και
I listen to you.
είμαι πολύ
And
ευτυχισμένη.
I'm very, very happy.
Ναι.
Yes. Yes,
Ναι,
my
αγάπη
darling.
μου. Ναι.
Yes.
Ναι. Ναι. Το ξέρω ότι μ' αγαπάς.
I know you love me.
Το ξέρω αγάπη μου. Το ξέρω.
I know, my
Το
love.
ξέρω.
I know.
Γεια σου Ιωάννα μου, θα τα πούμε πάλι.
We will talk again.
Έλα, πάρε το παιδί μας, εδώ το παιδί μας.
I'm giving
τον
you David again.
Φιλάκια.
I
Γεια
kiss
σου,
you
αγάπη μου,
very
γεια
much,
σου.
my darling.
Ναι, γεια σου Ιωάννα μου, γεια.
My
γεια.
Ioanna.
They were on the phone for exactly 2 minutes. They say nothing really. Effie just lets her know that she loves her, and I imagine Joan responding in the same manner across the line. They say they will speak again, tomorrow.
I just watched Effie being so sweet. And for most of my life, I was worried that people would hurt my mom, attack my mom. And my whole life was devoted to preventing that. I mean, think about this. Despite all this time waiting to talk to your sister, she doesn't rush into it. She doesn't ask all these probing questions. It was just a brief, whatever they spoke about, very casual, very sweet, very loving. I don't know what they were saying at the time, but I just saw that there was just this kindness.
Effie handed the phone back to David. Again, it is just one side of the conversation, but we get the idea.
Hey, Mom. Is that nice? Okay, good. Yeah, well, I'm learning slowly. I'm shocked that you can speak too. I'm glad that you're speaking. Okay. I'm gonna hold you to that deal. I'll learn Greek, you'll teach me, and then your Greek will get better and mine will start. How about that?
David hung up the phone and looked around the room. It was a totally different environment.
Everyone's crying. I think the whole family knew how much this meant to Effie. I think they were just so happy for Effie. I saw a family that was in such gratitude, in such awe for sharing in this moment.
Did Effie cry?
I don't think so. Effie cry? I mean, she certainly didn't cry over the phone. I don't remember her crying. Maybe a tear.
Everyone else but Effie. David was happy, along with everyone else. His mission was accomplished for a few minutes. And then, like everything else that has happened in his life, the tables were turned once again.
I texted my dad and I said, hey, how's mom after the call? And my dad said, over text, oh yeah, mom's fine. She actually really enjoyed the conversation. And I was like, oh, that's nice to hear. And then my dad said, but she's a little confused. She knows she spoke to her sister, but she thinks she spoke to Aunt Catherine. And then I said, oh, okay. And then classic father, he says, some things have happened while you've been gone, and I haven't wanted to tell you, and we'll talk about it at some point. And what that was is that my mother, what we would find out to be dementia, had kicked in hyperdrive while I was gone.
The question of whether Joan knew she was speaking with Effie, or if she thought it was her other sister, Catherine, is beyond the limit of our knowledge. If you ask me, I think Joan did recognize Effie. Again, why would she ask if her sister spoke English, or if she was living in the old house? But perhaps the memory got muddled up later. Effie is sure Joan knew who she was.
She knew. The first thing she asked me was, are you still living in Avra?
Avra, which in Greek means sea breeze, was, as you may remember from the first episode, the name of the house by the sea they all lived together as a family. Argyriadis, his second wife, and the 3 sisters. Effie told me that Joan spoke perfect Greek.
Her Greek was better than mine.
And that she was grateful to David.
David fought hard with his father to make this happen. I owe it to him that I spoke to my sister again.
I asked David what he thought.
In one sense, no, I don't think she knew that she was speaking to Effie. In another sense, I think she knew on a different level. I would later, years later, understand that when I was caring for my mother who was in dementia. You go to a different place of connection and communing. It's not based on words, identities, whatever. It's some other thing. And I hope that that was available to my mom during that call.
In Greek mythology, the river that flowed around the cave of sleep and through to the underworld was called Lethe. All those who drank from it experienced complete forgetfulness about life on earth. So in classical Greek, the word Lethe means oblivion or forgetfulness. But it also means concealment. And one dimension to Joan's tragedy is that she was forced to let go of her identity in her early years to become someone else in America. As a child, she never told her sister Catherine anything about their birth parents in Greece, and she didn't confide her past to her best friend Martha Katrougos during her teen years either. Her son David only got to know her after she was put on a lifetime of lithium. Many people had conspired to conceal her past. What happened to her father, Ilias Argyriadis? And then, when she was invited and encouraged to remember, she couldn't. It was too late. On April 15, 2020, Joan passed away of COVID complications. She and Effie were never reunited in person. Effie learned about Joan's death from Catherine.
She called me in the middle of the night and woke me up. I was the first one she thought of calling. I was the first person she wanted to share the news with. The news of our sister's death.
A year later, Catherine passed away from cancer. Effie, the oldest sister, is 85 years old today. All those months I spent with Effie, all those long hours interviewing her about her life, she never once showed any emotion. Effie is a tough woman. She learned to fight early on in life. Tears were never part of her action plan. So when her voice broke, I was taken aback.
I cannot get over Joan's death. Or Olympia's. I fought so hard to find them all my life. And then, when I did, they both died. It's like an ancient Greek tragedy. I can't describe the feeling. It's something I carry inside me every day, like an internal earthquake.
Every year, the relatives and friends of the men and women that were executed between the years 1941 and 1952 gathered together at the place of their execution. It is in a very central part of Athens, on the grounds of a hospital that still operates today, to remember them and honor their lives. A steel memorial has been raised on the site with all the names inscribed on it. It is called Attikos Timbos, Attic Tomb. There are speeches and music. In 2014, David was there with Effie, Nico, and Iliana.
You go into this compound, and it's kind of like a forest in there. And at the very end is this metal, modernist monument, memorial to the people who were killed there throughout time, throughout the Nazi occupation and onward. It's a big steel plaque, a wall, really. You go up to this wall of names, and it's just ugly. It's sad. It's awful. It's what a waste. It's the consequence of greed and war and fear and brutality.
One of the things that I've always found hard to convey to friends in the United States who have no connection to Greece and its history is how the Greek communists of the past century were on the right side of history, morally, and at the same time on the wrong side of history. And the truth is, I wouldn't have wanted my country to have fallen behind the Iron Curtain, and I'm happy I grew up with both Greek and American culture. But the deep cut between left and right, with the left gaining in popularity, especially among the young, has been the dividing force of many generations in Greece, including mine.
The names of the slain are inscribed into the piece of steel. Not just inscribed, but their names are absent. They're hollow. You could put your finger through the word. This is important to me as an artist. It's like the name was etched through the metal. Now, the reason why that's important is that on Memorial Day, you have a red carnation, and you go and you put the stem through the name. You couldn't do that if it was just an inscription.
There is a picture of David in front of the memorial tomb. He's kneeling, so his body is positioned right next to his grandfather's name on the lower right side. He's holding a red carnation and looks very solemn.
It was important for me in that moment to honor my grandfather and to honor his name and what he stood for and what he accomplished in his life and what he gave his life to.
During the ceremony, all the names are called out one by one.
Ιανουάριος Κασάνδρας Σταύρος, Βιτσίκας Νικόλαος, Ιούνιος Κώσιβας Γεώργιος, Αύγουστος Ηλιόπουλος.
Αργυριάδης and the men executed on the same day, Nikolaos Kalloumenos, Dimitrios Batsis, and Nikolaos Belogiannis, are the last ones to be called. Their execution was the last political execution in Greece. You will hear the name Ilias Argyriadis in a second, and if you listen very carefully, you will hear someone calling out Paron right afterwards. It is Nikos, Effie's husband, standing in the crowd. Paron, in Greek, means present.
1952, Αργυριάδης Ηλίας, Καλούμενος Νικόλαος, Μπάτσης Δημήτριος, Μπελογιάννης Νικόλαος. Αθάνατοι.
In Greek tradition, saying present is a way to indicate that our dead are remembered.
I noticed his name, and you take a moment, you say a prayer, or whatever you want to call it, and yeah, I mean, you're honoring a name as much as you are a person in a way, and that's important. Saying someone's name is important. It's symbolic, but it's vital.
Saying a dead person's name out loud is very much part of Greek tradition. In the Iliad, Homer starts out reciting a long list of names of the men killed in Troy. Homer knew it was important to remember everyone by name. It is a tradition continued in the Greek Orthodox Church today. Believers write down the names of their dead loved ones on little pieces of paper and give them to the priest to read them out loud. It is believed to be good for the soul, and that somehow they remain immortal this way. So on that day, Ilias Argyriadis, a Greek idealist who lived in the 1950s, was honored in this fashion by his grandson, an Irishman from New York. And in the process, 62 years after they were separated, a family was reunited. David, representing Joan as her only son, had in some sense brought the sisters together again, one last time. At the end of the ceremony, the relatives and friends honoring their loved ones at the attic tomb sing the Greek national anthem. Thanks for listening to Born Greek, Made American. Joan is one of the 3,500 Greek-born adoptees that made their way to the United States during the Cold War years. We will soon be releasing a bonus episode with additional interviews, as there is more to be told on the Greek-born adoptee story. During Joan's final months, she and David spent their time painting. The art they made together was exhibited under the title Stay Close. You can see it at davidwhelan.com/stay-close. Born Greek, Made American is a co-production of Melon Media and the non-for-profit journalistic organization IMED. It is created and hosted by me, Katerina Bakogianni. Additional reporting and fact-checking from Dimitris Manis. Editing, mixing and sound design by Evangelos Makris and Dimitris Kokovidis. Our theme music is composed by Evangelos Makris. Executive producers were Nikos Aronis and Panayotis Menegos for IMED and me for Melon Media. A big thank you to Campside Media's Vanessa Grigoriadis for her support to the series from the very beginning, and editors Lily Smith and Julia Case Levine for looking through the final scripts. Thanks to Sof Kazinoviev, Lefteris Charitos, and Lisa Vigileu for their support to this series. They each know why. Thanks to actress Iliana Panayotouni, Ilias Argyriadis' granddaughter, who agreed to voice over her mother Effie, and to Nikos Theodosis Fexoulis, who so generously shared with us his lifelong research. Also thanks to Joan's American family, David and David Sr., and Catherine's husband, Basil Diamond, for sharing with me information about Joan's life in the States. It has helped all of us understand what happened a little bit better. And special thanks to Honda van Steen. Born Greek is based on her book, Adoption, Memory and Cold War Greece, Quid Pro Quo, and it could not have happened without her.